Welcome to House of Horns, and that's it. It's over. The 2022 season for the Rams is over, done, finito. It's a wrap up, and we're here to discuss it on House of Horns. I'm Gilbert Manzano, Rams beat reporter for the OC Register LA Daily News, and as always, joining me, Victor Javier Corona, Vic, the producer. Vic, that's it, but we're not technically done. Wrap up show. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I thought you were gonna do that TikTok little audio, like going into the 2022 season. That's
The NFL draft. Dun, 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 dun.
yeah, getting ready for it. No, but I'm doing good. It's finally the rain has kind of let up here, so it's allowing us to record tonight. So, and we got a lot on the table here to talk about. So, why don't we get started? So, get us started, Gilbert.
Yeah. You know how some players wait till the offseason to have surgery? I'm coming home from the dentist, I had, a little root canal. People call it surgery sometimes. I don't know. So if I look a little off or funny, and that's why, but I was holding it off because I'm a trooper and the season's over. So I got to recover. So it was an interesting season, though, Victor. And I was going to say a lot of highs and lows, but a lot of lows. It was a surprising season for the Rams. And one thing I find annoying this time of year is everybody wants to examine what the heck happened, but it's always like, well, what can we look forward to? So we're gonna start off this show looking forward. We're gonna examine a little bit what happened with the not anymore defending Super Bowl champion Rams, and what the heck went wrong because it's obvious, right? Injuries. Now it's like who's gonna come back, and like the biggest question is, will the head coach Sean McVay be back for a seventh season with the Rams? When we talked to him last week, he didn't want to talk about it. When the game ended in Seattle, he didn't want to talk about it. But yesterday on Monday, he was very open about it, and it sounds like a guy who really, really wants to chase his other goals that does not involve being a head coach. So Vic, with that, let me start the engagement question. We'll do some promos real quick, and we get into the whole discussion there with Sean McVay, but not just McVay. We'll talk about Stafford, Aaron Donald, Cooper Cup, Allen Robinson, Jalen Ramsey, all the stars that did not find a way to win 6 games this year because I just listed that roster and it's pretty stacked. I don't understand it, Victor. But engagement question for today is: if Sean McVay steps away, who do you want to see become the next head coach of the Rams? And I got a little list here, Victor, because I have a little feeling that they might be searching for a head coach here, with Sean McVay very eager to chase his dreams to be in the TV booth. But in-house candidates, the DC, Raheem Morris, he's a strong candidate there. Used to be a head coach in Tampa Bay. He was a young head coach, and for us reporters, that'd be a good one because Raheem Morris is a great quote. And guys like Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald, they all love Raheem Morris. So it'd be kind of an easy switch. I'll be very curious to see what happens with the offense, but Raheem Morris is a good candidate. Speaking of the offense, Thomas Brown, the assistant head coach, tight ends coach. By the way, Thomas Brown, when he moved over back to the running backs, that's when Cam Akers started going off. So coincidence? I think not. So Thomas Brown also candidate. Other candidates, Victor Ben Johnson, the Lions OC, who I really like to watch him play call. Shane Steichen, Eagles OC, and that Eagles offense has been pretty good all year. Also, former Rams coach, Ejiro. I always feel like I'm butchering his name, but Ejiro is the Broncos DC, and some big names: Victor, Sean Payton, former head coach of the New Orleans Saints; Jim Harbaugh, former coach of the 49ers, now with Michigan. So those are big fish out there, but there's plenty of candidates. So let us know who you want to potentially be the next head coach of the Rams. We're not trying to kick out Sean McVay, but just to get ahead, let us know in the comments. And before I give the bonus question, Victor, what do you think about those names so far?
The only one that I'd be interested in is Ben Johnson, the OC for the Lions. And with the whole connection between the Lions and the Rams, I mean, why not? Like we've seen players, we've seen front office people, switch jobs there it's a pipeline between, the Lions and the Rams. But I've seen what he's done this season with Jared Goff. I would feel bad for Jared Goff because it looks like he's finally found something with the Lions, and for you to take away his offensive coordinator would kind
After
of
the
be,
Rams traded him there.
yeah, it would be kind of it would suck. I know it would. So I in a way I'm hoping that everything works out here with McVay and he stays, and also that Ben Johnson stays at least another year. With Jared Goff, because he's done. They've had a great relationship this season, and would like to see Jared Goff continue to improve. So that's the only name. Don't you're gonna have to trade a bunch of picks for Sean Payton,
Mm.
which you don't
You don't have
have.
to.
Jim Har yeah, and then you have to pretty much give up the keys with Jim Harbaugh because he wants full control. So there's also that. So yeah, the only name that it looks exciting there is Ben Johnson.
Yeah, and I agree with you there because I don't know if Les Snead and Stan Kroenke and Kevin Demoff are ready to give the keys to Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh. Uh, but even with a big name like Sean McVay, right? Like he commanded so much, but it felt like a group, like a team effort, and that's why it worked so much. I don't know if those guys come in how that would be in terms of a group effort, but it's gonna be tough to kind of look past your in-house candidates, Raheem Morris and Thomas Brown. There's some well qualified
Yeah.
coaches there, so we'll see how what happens there. Like it could become a smooth transition, but also too when you try to keep things in house and try to keep things the same, as we found out in New Orleans with Sean Payton left and Dennis Allen took over, trying to copy things doesn't really lead to good results. So we'll see what happens there. But Ben Johnson will be very intriguing. And one more bonus question here. But yeah, let us know in the comments who you want to see potentially replace Sean McVay. But the bonus question is, what do you guys want us to cover here at House of Horns in the off season? Because me and Victor are trying to plan our schedule. You know, we might take a week or two off after this episode here, but we don't want to be gone too much. Like we want to talk draft. If that's something that's interesting for you, you guys want us to kind of break down a position. Obviously, offensive line is big, free agency, more talking about the coaching search. If that occurs and McVay is gone again, it's a lot of ifs right now. But I just want to hear from you guys. What do you guys want to hear? So double questions today for the engagement. Now, Victor, let us know what we have to promote on this episode.
Yeah, before we move on and talk about the promotions that we need to get to, I just wanted to say in terms of um, where we're at with where were we? I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Let's go to the promotion. Forget about that. Um, we have Compass on the Beat coming out on Wednesday. We have a lot for you. We have week 18 takeaways. So that'll be something that Gilbert and Fernando got into discussion between the Rams and the Chargers. Especially with what happened with the decision with Brandon Staley. Gilbert went on a big tangent there and had some. He covered the Chargers for 4 years, so he gave his perspective, which was honest and straightforward. Fernando talked about what might happen with Sean McVay, as if he doesn't come back, and he gave some coaching candidates that he would like to see, and pointed out that if Sean McVay does leave, he's saying that the Rams become very interesting in 2023. So, and I agree with him. And then we also have we've gone over 200 subscriptions on Combat Compass. We have the Tank Davis fight. I know now that Gilbert is done with the Ram Speed, he's going to have a little bit more time to focus on combat sports. So we have that coming out for you. What's up, Bolts? As the Chargers get ready for their playoff game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you want to get a little more taste of Gilbert, he'll be on there shortly, and he's going to join them for that preview of the Jaguars and Chargers. So if you want to tune in, that'll help, because they're also looking for subscribers on there. They're giving away a Justin Herbert shirt. So if you're interested in that, you can head over there and check out What's Up Bolts. And then on you have COMPAS FC. They're talking about a lot of the European club teams out there. They have a great discussion. If you're into soccer and you like watching the Premier League or La Liga, any of those leagues, they got you covered on there. And also, as we always talk about, check out Homage. They got I'm wearing my shirt, my blue shirt here, my Rams shirt today. It's a little cold, so that's why I'm wearing this hoodie. I do need to upgrade and get myself a Homage hoodie for for the rest of this winter season. But outside of that, what else did I miss, Gilbert?
No, I think you covered it all, and it was a lengthy promo, and props to you. And it's a good thing for us because we're doing a lot of things here on the Compass on the Beat Network, and eventually I'm gonna start, giving away or even selling some of these hats too because we got to get some advertisement money here, and we have a nice little collab with Homage. We're trying to get to the Super Bowl in Arizona. Hopefully, we get announce some good news with that in the coming weeks. But yeah, we're doing it all here on the Compas on the Beat Network. And like you guys know, we have House of Horns with covering the Rams, but we have a bunch of other options here, as Victor mentioned. So with that, I appreciate all the support. Go ahead.
Before we move on, I remember what it was that I lost my train of thought on. Now that and that's what happens when you're trying to produce a show here and you're going everywhere. Um, as we continue as you were talking about us, what the fans want from us going forward. We're finishing up. We're going to be kind of focused on doing some uh playoff previews with all the other teams. Once we get done with that, I'll head into draft mode, and I'll start looking for some players and seeing where some of the players that the Rams might draft. So I'll start looking at that, kind of doing some projections there. But outside of that, once the Super Bowl hits, it's all about heading and figuring out who might be out there in terms of free agents and also the draft for the Rams. So stay locked for that.
Yeah, and sometimes change is good. And after I know that the people are wondering what's happening with Sean McVay, you want to have a good coach, but build through the draft, new faces, new stars, and something that could be pretty exciting. So yeah, we'll cover it all: free agency and the draft, potentially a coaching search there, and then even if McVay comes back, a lot of his assistants might be going elsewhere. Speaking of that, quick news before I go into the storylines: Liam Cohen, officially, I guess, because I kind
Yeah,
of was the writing was on the wall.
it wasn't a secret, right?
Well, it was not, but he kept trying to hold off until the end of the season. Liam Cohen heading back to Kentucky, and like I mentioned, Victor, when Liam is trying to go back to Kentucky when he was in the NFL, no disrespect, but it's like kind of like if you want to be in the pro game, then you stay with the Rams. But maybe he wants to be in college. I don't know, but to me, it was kind of like, hey, McVay's not coming back, so you should do what's best for you, and maybe explore options. And if your heart was in Kentucky, now's the time because there's an opening there. So that was maybe the first domino there. And Liam could have keep it a secret, but now it's official going back to Kentucky. So I will now transition there to Sean McVay. And, when he spoke on Monday for his exit interview, I don't think he got a single question about 2022. It's all about where is he going to go? What is he thinking? And to me, it sounded like a guy who just needed to like make sure he spoke to all the people who deserve to hear from him and what he's thinking. And I'm pretty sure all these people are gonna say, "Thank you for talking to us, but do what's best for you." And after he gets all the blessings, and there's maybe a fat contract waiting for him from Amazon, Fox, I don't know where, he's gonna go and pursue it because he sounded like a guy who's just ready to chase his goals. And he didn't come through the whole traditional route where you pay your dues as an assistant, you got to grind out for many years, and you wait till you're 40 and you become a head coach. And then when you become a head coach, you hold on to that job for 20 years, and then, okay, now I'm finally tired, let's go do the TV stuff. You kind of went the other route there. um, Names that come to mind: John Madden, John Gruden. They kind of did the whole coaching early, and then they got out their system, and they want to do other things. And I know he's still in his 30. He wanted to make it clear he's not done coaching, but that sounds like he wants to take a break and pursue his dreams of being a TV guy. He's good at it. We saw it in the preseason when he was calling it. We've seen his great memories. So to me, it sounds like the time is now. I know he'll get criticized for leaving after a losing season, but Sean McVay says he has no regrets about turning down Amazon last year. Like the losing needed to happen this year because it made him better as a person, as a leader, as a coach, all around. Just not for next season. I think for maybe 4, 5, 6 years. I don't know, Victor, but to me, I'll ask you right now what you thought. To me, it sounds like he just wants to talk to people, do it right, go on a good exit where he'll when anytime he comes back with the Rams, he'll be regarded as a legend. You're welcome back here. You did it the right way, and then boom, go back to the TV booth, and we'll see what happens in 5 to 10 years when he tries to come back.
Yeah, one of the things that stood out about the Liam Cohen situation was, and I also have been keeping an eye in terms of, there's been reports, I guess, today about Sean McVay and what's going to happen, and some of the things I've been seeing is that if he comes, even if he comes back, there's going to be a bunch of changes with this coaching staff. So maybe he had already, I'm, and this is just me theorizing, is that maybe McVay had already told Liam Cohen, like, hey, I'm making changes come the end of the season, and he was like, all right, well, I'll just take the job at Kentucky. Who knows? Maybe that's what happened. That's just, I'm just saying that just in case he comes back, just expect a bunch of coaching changes, because that's been the big rumor today. In terms of McVay, he's been John Gruden 2.0 from the time he got to the Rams. I mean, the way he speaks, the way he answers people, it's all in the John Gruden. I mean, he that was his the person who he followed when he was down in Tampa. He gave him his first job as a video guy, and then he moved on and worked with his brother down in with Washington. And so it makes sense. Like, he's following the same path as John Madden and John Gruden. And now he's got a taste of success here in LA. He's got a home here. I'm sure he's gonna stay here and make, as you said, make his money. It's easy work. I can totally see him taking over as the quarterback camp thing that Gruden had before, and being that guy here in LA where all the quarterbacks come and he breaks down their film and they kind of do something for him. Like, I can totally see him running something similar. He goes to ESPN. One thing to keep in mind, and I know I shared it on our mm, on our group chat, was that according to Sam Farmer, um, it's no longer going to be Fox on NBC, Fox on the NFC, and
Yeah.
CBS on the AFC. It's going to be a free for all. So, I mean, if you can get Sean McVay and you pay him, I think that the one that makes the most sense is ESPN, because they have that QB camp. I know they've replaced Gruden with someone else, but it didn't work out. And I think Sean McVay would be perfect for that, especially what we've seen with Baker Mayfield and what he's been able to do. So for me, that would be something that would, if I'm Sean McVay, that would interest me. And ESPN has all the money, any of these networks do. But it'll be interesting to see if he does leave, which network he ends up on, Gilbert.
Yeah, like it's tough because the last year, this past year was where all the moving parts were happening for TV networks, and Amazon was new; they were going strong for Sean McVay, and now all these jobs are set, so you're kind of like in the way now. But like McVay's a guy, like you make moves to make it happen, so it's gonna be a little difficult. But he must know something is coming up or brewing to him to be considering something. So
Exactly.
I don't know what's gonna like. I would personally would like to hear him calling games on, like, Tony Romo, Troy Aikman, those guys. Uh, but I also like your idea of being a studio guy for ESPN. The only problem with ESPN is like they already have Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, and those guys are very good at what they do, and they're kind of a pair. Like, you can't go and bring in a third guy like McVay, and it's just too much going on. So I feel like it would be a studio thing. But for me, just kind of on the selfish side, I would like to hear him call games play by play, and maybe he could do it with Amazon again. Maybe he could make it work. Maybe Fox, because one, like you mentioned, they're not gonna do it anymore. But Fox covered the NFC, so he probably has a good relationship with Sean. Sean maybe has a good relations with Fox, and then I don't know how I feel about Greg Olson as an analyst, but he's already holding the seat for Tom Brady, but Tom Brady refuses to retire, so maybe give Sean McVay a shot there. It's a whole lot, but I'm sure Rams fans don't care about what happens with TV stuff. They care about the team. And
Yeah.
one thing with Sean McVay, I think he was okay with talking about it yesterday or Monday, because he wants to start putting it in people's brains and ears. Okay, because if it comes out of nowhere as a surprise, you're a Rams, you're mad. Like, what the hell, man? Why are you leaving right now? Like, it was a losing season, but now we're kind of like, Okay, man, we get it. You won the Super Bowl. It was fun, 6 years. You were here for the F the picks era. You just wanted to win, win, win. We appreciate it. Go do what you got to do. So I think that's why he's kind of slowly working his way to it. We'll see what happens, how long he drags it out, because I'm trying to go on vacation for like to disappear next week. And if he's not making a decision, I can't totally disappear. So that's me being selfish. But I think Rams fans just brace for it, and we'll see what happens. But again, maybe a new start is the right time, because like we kept saying for the longest, like you've been saying for the longest too, Victor, like eventually the Bills do on the F the picks model, and you got what you wanted. You got the Super Bowl. But as we found out this year, when injuries finally occurred, there was not much depth there. Like, yeah, they hit him some pieces in the back end of the draft, but it wasn't to form a competitive team. And when your guys went down, they really struggled. And then when they went after Christian McCaffrey, they didn't have any more ammo to go and continue the model of F them picks. And that's why when other teams got aggressive in the trade deadline, they lost. And so when you don't have draft picks, you don't have enough to offer for star players, you don't have kind of like the farm system going on, it's all starting to fall apart. I'm not saying this team's going to be terrible next year, but what made them special, and the tricks and kind of being ahead of the curve, that's gone now. People know the blueprint. They're going to do that. So maybe it's the right time for everybody to start a new cycle. Like even like with the offensive line, Sean McVay never really, in Les Snead, never invested money on it. But this year, that came to bite them back in the butt. So I think it's a good time to really reassess what you're thinking as a team, organization. So that's maybe we could end it that way, but I feel like Sean McVay leaving might be at the right time, regardless of how you see it. Like he could come back next year, but they might still be like a fringe wild card team. And does people want to be in the middle? Not really, right?
Yeah. No, and that six was perfectly, because we want to know, does Stafford and Aaron Donald come back if Sean McVay is gone? Like, you know, we already heard from Aaron Donald before last season that he was thinking about retiring, and the only reason he came back was because, one, they gave him a big fat contract extension, and also he wanted to run it back and wanted to see what would happen. And I think that's part of the reason we didn't see him even try to come back, with the bum ankle. I mean, I don't blame him at that point. What's the point? Like, his legacy is sad. Same thing with Stafford. He won his Super Bowl. So my question to you, Gilbert, is: do you see Stafford and Aaron Donald coming back
Yeah.
and being with the Rams next season?
I'll start with the easy one, because Matthew Stafford told reporters for the exit interview that he has no plans to retire, and he doesn't care what Sean McVay does. He supports Sean McVay, but if he comes back or not, that doesn't affect him anyway. He's going to play football in 2022. He's under contract with the Rams, so he's all set up to play with the Rams if that's what the Rams decide to do. Say Sean McVay leaves and they want to blow it up, maybe Stafford goes somewhere else. I don't know. Maybe he has a no trade clause in his contract. I wouldn't be surprised, but they just paid the guy last year, so it's going to be kind of pricey to move around. And then he's coming off a bunch of injuries. Like if you're going to trade him, it's going to be tough with a guy with the spinal cord contusion, a concussion, and all that. And uh, so the whole thing about coming back next year is that's not a story. He's not gonna retire. He's gonna come back, and it's most likely gonna be with the Rams. The whole issue is he healthy? Can he be a starter? Can he play 17 games? Can he play 21 games like he did in the Super Bowl? And he said he feels good where he's at. He made it seem like it was more out of precaution when the whole neck injury occurred. Like he feels rested. He's excited to go into the off season and actually be a part of the OTAs. Like I think it's funny when they said, "Oh, Stafford not throwing is a good thing. His arm is tired," and then when they're losing, "Oh, he needed OTA's time to develop chemistry with Allen Robinson." Blah blah blah. But now he's good for that, and he made it seem like it was more out of precaution. He also said that he never seriously considered retiring. It was more out of a courtesy to have a family discussion with his wife, and just like, "Hey, yeah, I got the concussion. That's serious. Yeah, the not feeling my legs in New Orleans. That's very serious." But it was pretty much like, I'm not retiring. So I think that's going to be interesting to see what happened with Stafford and how he checks out and what happens with potentially a new coach, a new OC, all that stuff. Aaron Donald's a tricky one because Aaron Donald hasn't spoken to reporters since before Kansas City. He wasn't around for the locker room clean out. And what I've been told, he's going to talk to reporters on Zoom sometime Zoom, whatever. Maybe this week, maybe next week, and they're trying to hold it up. So I think we'll talk to Aaron Donald later on, and we'll definitely ask him, "Are you going to retire? You're thinking about it? What happened with the injury?" And the thing with Aaron Donald, he's done everything he could. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He has a Super Bowl. It's just like when he got paid with that new contract, which he's making pretty much quarterback money. It's gonna be hard to say, you know what,
Yep.
that $40 million for next year, man, I don't want it. I'm cool. But this is a guy who's made a lot of money in his career. Maybe it doesn't affect him, but I think part of the reason why he was considering retiring is because he wanted a new contract, and when he has it, might as well play it out, or at least take one more year out of it, and then call it a day. Because I think it's 9 seasons, so maybe get one more, get to 10, and you're good. But we don't know much about Aaron Donald just yet until he talks to reporters, maybe this week or later on next week.
Right. Yeah, and I mean those are the big questions, and I'm gonna kind of change things on you here because I wanted to keep talking about Stafford and Aaron Donald, and it made me think of, so how does this team look next season? um what does this team look like at the start of 2023? I know we're just 2 days, 3 days from the season ending, but you have so many questions up in the air right now as we're talking. This roster, came in as they try running it back. You have guys like Cooper Cup, Allen Robinson still under contract. How will this roster look come the start of the 2023 season, Gilbert?
I honestly think it depends on who the coach is. Like if you, I feel like if they keep it in house with guys that like people really like and respect, like Thomas Brown or Raheem Morris, like you have the same kind of core, and you try to build through the draft, and maybe you pay some money for offensive line if you have some money with the salary cap, and it looks like a good team. Like I started the show, it was like Stafford, Cup, Robinson, Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Bobby Wagner, like these guys are all under contract. Like that's a good start, and I think it'll be competitive. But again, like what we found out earlier this year, there's a lot of cracks on this team. Like you got to figure out the offensive line. You got to maybe get another DB or two. Maybe get some more help for Aaron Donald. You definitely need some pass rushers, but maybe they found something in Michael Hoy, and I think what was the stat that I saw? I think Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd, Tyler Higbee, and Bobby Wagner were the only 4 players, or Rob Havenstein, 5. The only
Right.
5 players to start in every game this season. So Leonard Floyd did his part, I felt like, but I don't know if he's a guy to be your number one edge rusher. So they have a lot of holes to fix. But say they go outside and they hire like a Ben Johnson or somebody else that people don't really know. Like I just did a story on Jalen Ramsey who kept saying, "I really want to play with Derwin James." Maybe that's an opportunity where he's like, you know what, new regime, new something. Can I just go play with my boy Derwin? I wouldn't be surprised. If it's Raheem Morris, Jalen Ramsey loves Raheem Morris. But if somebody else that he doesn't know, maybe you start like kind of throwing the whispers. Okay, let's go somewhere else. Let's try new here. Maybe they start cleaning house, and like I mentioned, maybe Stafford's going to play, but maybe not with the Rams. They start trading them. Aaron, like especially if Aaron Donald retires, like that's going to start a whole effect there because Jalen Ramsey also loves to play with Aaron Donald, and then Bobby Wagner, he just had a great season. What like does he want to come back for another kind of crappy year and lose? Like when you're in that part of your career, it's gonna be tough. Like, but I feel like that core, if they just invest some money on the offensive line, maybe hit on some picks there. They have the second round pick because they didn't trade these picks for CMC, so they're gonna be okay. Obviously, it sucks to have the first round pick, but I don't know if they bring back the same band. Are they going to be a contender? I know the NFC is kind of weak, Victor. Looking at this field right now, the 49ers are still in the division, but overall, it just really depends on the coaching hire, and but it makes for good kind of talk during the offseason.
Yeah, no, and we're gonna have a lot to talk about because, like I said, and we're just bringing this up 3 days after the season, and just hearing you talk about it. I mean, let's start with, if McVay comes back, then everybody comes back. But then if he doesn't, what do they do? Do they just blow it up and decide, okay, we're just gonna go our own way and we're gonna start this over with a new coach? Or do they have a conversation with the players and they're like, what do you guys want to do? I don't know what the dynamic is or the conversation is with the players and the front office. If they just decide, you know what, we have all this money, we can just retool. Let's keep it in house and then bring everybody back and then see what they can do. So it'll be interesting, man. We're in for quite the off season here, and then it also shows you that the NFL is we talk about it as a week to week. It's also a year to year, man. Like, everybody after the Super Bowl was talking about how the Rams had a 3-year window. Man, windows close so fast unless you have a young quarterback. I heard Joe Burrow like, the other
Yeah.
day. I thought it was sick what he said. He's like, "Hey, do you see your window closing?" And he's like, "As long as I'm here, the window is open." And it's the truth. If you have a young quarterback, your windows, unfortunately, you have players that are older, and it's going to be hard for your a window to stay open unless you're somebody like Tom Brady. It just doesn't, and it's hard. It's hard to maintain those windows open in terms of your Super Bowl and how long you can win Super Bowls. And for the Rams, look at this season. It shows you that any season, you have success for one season, and then it's not guaranteed for the next couple of years, Gilbert.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the whole thing for Sean McVay. Like, obviously, Stafford is his boy, but to be coming off those injuries, now you're uncertain about how he's going to look and how he's going to play. And then now they're saying he's healthy and maybe that elbow is okay. But like, even during the season, like, I know the pressure got to him, but there were some times where he missed a couple throws, and we don't know how he's going to look like. We've already forgotten about Baker Mayfield. That's the kind of the funny thing, Victor. There,
Yeah.
like if Sean McVay's not around, I don't see Baker sticking around. Uh, so I don't know. Like, maybe that's what maybe that's a good point, saying you need a young quarterback to having your window open. They don't have the young quarterback. Maybe McVay saying, okay, I already did my part with Stafford. I don't owe him anything, and why do I come back for more uncertainty, waiting for this guy to be healthy? And then you're looking at your salary cap, you're looking at your draft picks, you're looking how little your depth was, and maybe it's an eye opener. And I get the McVay saying like, hey, you know what? There's no regrets here. I wanted to run it back. I wanted to make it work with this team, and it just didn't work out. And I'm happy for it. I've been become a better person, and yeah, and that's gonna be the safe response. But at the back of your mind, you're probably thinking like, okay, this might be the time to leave, and he won't say that. But it's gonna be very interesting, and I think it really starts with McVay, and then the number two is gonna be Aaron Donald, and see what happens there. But it say AD doesn't come back, it's gonna be a different look. But I think for sure Stafford and Cooper Cup will be back. Like, it's gonna be tough to get rid of Stafford. You're even thinking about that, but also too, like, the whole factor you brought this up during the CMC trade talks. Like, the Rams know they're in LA. They need to feel something good. Like, they found out the hard way that when they were losing. Like, nobody wanted to talk about the Rams until they got Baker Mayfield, and that's part of the process too, because you got more attention for to end this really bad season, but do you want to do that again? Like Stafford and Cup could hold you up, but I don't know. It's gonna be tough. I just don't really see a full blow up, because I don't know if this franchise can endure another 5-12 season.
Perfect segue for me there, Gilbert. I love it, man. What will be the number one priority to upgrade the roster? And then the reason I kind of like this segue is because, as we were talking about, we have no idea 3 days after the season what the priority. I can tell you this: the number one priority is fixing that offensive line. You have one of the ways you can start to um, build this roster is start restructuring some of those contracts. That with Matthew Stafford, Jalen Ramsey, and Aaron Donald, especially if they come back. If they're, I need to do a little bit more research in terms of what happens if the players retire and how does that affect your salary cap. But you gave a terror. It's been well documented the contract they gave Joe Noteboom. He's your highest paid offensive lineman. You can cut him after June 1st and save about 7.5 million. You can also trade him and create cap room there, which honestly, there's going to be hard to trade. He is young, but you have to pay, or you're going to have to uh, draft linemen through, come the draft. Where is it, in Kansas City this year? So either try to restructure some contracts, get under the salary cap, create somewhere between 20 to 30 million. I mean, we've seen the New Orleans Saints last year. There were 70, I think 70 or 60 million under over the salary cap, and then it got to the first day of the NFL uh, window there, and and they had cut all that money down. So it's doable. You can you with the way the capologists some of these teams have, you can make it work. And yeah, the number one priority, at least on my end, it's going to be the offensive line, Gilbert.
Yeah, I agree with the offensive line, and a very very close second is finding some pass rushers. But I'll start with the offensive line, not too much because you touched on it, and I'll go with the pass rushers. Uh, Everybody, not pretty much, if you're not named Rob Havenstein, you're on a chopping block. You might be gone, you might not come back. If you're a free agent, keep looking. Rob Havenstein did his part, 17 games, team captain, and played pretty well. I think it was a big surprise to the team that Joe Noteboom wasn't ready to be an everyday starter, because they've been grooming this guy to be the guy who takes over for Andrew Whitworth. It was a good plan. You drafted the guy, you develop him, and then once this guy leaves, cool. You've seen him get a couple of spot starts, and he was great. And becoming an everyday starter, like he came that week one against Von Miller, it was bad. Uh, I want to say he played. Yeah, we played in week 4 against Nick Bosa, also bad. So all these star rushers are going after him, and then they get Tynaseki, this guy from their practice squad, is journeyman from 12 years ago who played on the St. Louis Rams actually, and he kind of held it down. They got settled down after that, and when they got healthy in the interior with Brian Allen and Coleman Shelton, that's when results were coming, but it was a little too late. So I wonder what happens there, because if you feel like Joe Noble's not up to it, and you could save that money that you said, they might just do it and look elsewhere, because like, it's funny too, because they've been cheap with the offensive line, but then you go and get a journeyman at Tynaseki, and that worked out for you. So it makes you feel like, okay, should they spend money? Should they not? And we'll see what they do, because other thing too is Brian Allen, man, he's not reliable. He doesn't stay healthy. He's a good center, but he just doesn't not reliable. I will keep Coleman Shelton, because to have a two-way guy like that, a guard and a center, that's valuable there. So maybe Coleman comes back, and Rob, but we'll see. And David Edwards had 2 concussions last year, so it's gonna be probably a revamped offensive line, and maybe that's for the best there. And edge rusher, I'll keep it quick. I don't know if Michael Hoyt could be an everyday starter. He is really impressive. He makes plays, and that's what they couldn't even get that the first part of the year. They couldn't make impact plays. Like, you don't have to be a scout to figure out who's doing well. If your name's being called and you're out there making sacks and you're hitting quarterbacks, that's easy to spot. And that's what Michael Hoyt was doing. The one time he really struggled was that Raider game when he was getting beat off the edge, but he settled down. And I don't know, maybe teams forgot about that, but I don't think he got called out like that the rest of the way. Again, it was kind of the back end of the season. People are not, maybe don't care as much, but he did okay. He held it down. He had a couple of big hits against Geno Smith in Seattle, but I'm not sure if you could go into another season and having Leonard Floyd and Michael Hoyt being your 1-2. I think the other one that you mentioned in terms of your salary, if let go Leonard Floyd, you get some money that way too. So I think that might that might come down to that. You want to restart there, but how do you replace them? What do you do? And it's going to be tough there. So uh, we'll figure it out, because it didn't work out for them, because Terrell Lewis and Justin Hollins was the answer, and they were both waived. So, but I think when they were chasing Brian Burns and then Christian McCaffrey, it tells you what the priority is, and it's definitely edge rusher, I feel like, and we'll see what they do with offensive line.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody's going to point out and say that the number one priority to upgrade the roster is to bring back Sean McVay, but I mean, we don't know what's going to
Yeah.
happen there. But in terms of the players, it'll be interesting to see how they go about the building of this roster during the offseason. There's a lot of questions with this team, and we'll be here to as things break. Once the season ends and the new league year begins. There's a lot to talk about in terms of draft, and also free agency. Well, free agency is first, and then it's the draft. So it'll be interesting to see how whether the Rams are aggressive, and then the next 2 weeks are big for the Rams here because we need, we're gonna find out what the decision is from Sean McVay, and then it'll go from there. So outside of that, Gilbert, I don't know what else you want to talk about in terms of. I had something about the biggest reason for the disappointment season, but we kind of covered all that tonight. So I don't know what else. If you have anything else that you wanted to make sure we covered or that we haven't covered.
More like news items, but I think what you mentioned, like, yeah, we everybody wants to know about Sean McVay and what happens, but until he decides, we don't really know how to break down the future of the Rams. So that's why it won't be too long of an episode today. But a couple news items: Jalen Ramsey, he injured both shoulders during the Super Bowl run, and when he said he only had surgery on one shoulder, I was like, huh, that's kind of weird. And uh, now he says after his exit interview that he needs shoulder surgery on the other shoulder. So now it makes sense. I think he didn't want to have double surgery there, and that could have affected him. And maybe that's kind of where he struggled a lot, like having the surgery. So he had the surgery like in late July, and maybe we forget about that. And he finally found his stride in Seattle because that was a great game he had to end off the year. And Jalen Ramsey said that hey, if you look at the stats, first of all, he was like, hey, I don't care for stats, but look at the stats. And he said it was one of his best years. So he was happy with his performance. Obviously, us seeing the coverage, it wasn't the best, but he ended up pretty strong. And when you're doing so much, you're being versatile, it's a big ask, and to having surgery so late, he said that kind of affected him, but he won't do that this time around for the other shoulder. So he'll have surgery scheduled there, and we'll see how long he's out. Maybe through OTAs, we'll figure it out later. And Cooper Cup has not been cleared for football activities, but he said that all the medical team and the trainers have said making good progress, and so it kind of makes you wonder, like if they would have made the playoffs, he probably wouldn't be ready right now. So uh for him, he doesn't worry about games. But if he could get cleared in February or whatever OTAs, that's all good news for Cooper Cup. And again, you have one of the best receivers in the NFL, one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. It should be a good team if the whole band comes back together. But again, we know the depth, we know the issues on the edge, we know the issues on the offensive line, and that's where the good teams usually prevail. So they'll figure it out. But yeah, I think I'm done with the wrap up show here on House of Horns.
Yeah, no, the only other thing I wanted to kind of touch on in terms of Jalen Ramsey, I mean, one of the things that kind of stood out, I followed JB Long, and he pointed out that he actually rated higher than he did last season when he was a Pro Bowler. So, I mean, he finished the season off, and part of it might have been that. So the we always forget, like we're like, what's wrong with players? Why are they falling off? And we always forget that, hey, injuries, like he had I totally forgot he had shoulder surgery. So there you go. That might have been a reason why. And
Yeah.
and it always happens at the end of the season. Afterward, you end up finding out what they end up playing through. And of course they're not going to talk about it because they don't want to let people know so that they don't tip off the opponents. But this is the time of year where you find out why players might have had a down season. And there you go. We now know with Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, he finished the year strong. I think the last time he got really burned was like early on in that Raider game with Devontae Adams, and but it wasn't like a big it's something that really killed you. It was early in the game. Maybe he kind of just changed his own mindset after the whole DK Metcalf game winning touchdown that he allowed in week 13. I want to say because after that he played pretty well for the most part. Besides those two catches of Devontae, you shut down Christian Watson and Green Bay. He had the good performance against DK yesterday. The Chargers didn't really attack his side for that game, but it was really bad for the defense. I don't know. I would give him too much credit for that one. What else? The Denver game, that was a complete domination. So yeah, he had a good little finish there. We all focus on Cam Akers for the good surge at the end, and I wonder what happens with him if a new coach comes around. Thomas Brown's the head coach. Cam Akers is back. That's for sure. But yeah, so Cam Akers, Jalen Brown, they all finished strong, and that's what you want to see. I think for Rams fans, you probably respect the effort there. It would have been nice for probably Wagner to get that game on Sunday, but when you don't check out, that's a good sign for the team and the locker room and for the respect that the coaching staff has.
Yeah, no, it was really, I think that the biggest takeaway I had from this season is just seeing Bobby Wagner, and he's been, everything that you heard about when he was with Seattle, and even more just listening to you and you covering him and some of the stories that you wrote about him. That's been that's been my number one takeaway from this season was Bobby Wagner. I hope he comes back because he's been I don't know about you, but he's been a pleasure to watch as a football player and also as a person, and I'm glad he was able to give you some access.
Yeah, by the way, that reminds me, I spoke to Ernest Jones in Seattle, and I started remembering that Bobby Wagner is known for giving out books for people to read. And I asked Ernest Jones, he's like, "Man, I can't remember the last time I completed a book until I met Bobby Wagner, and he's given me so many books that I finished this year." And he's like, "They're about like finances, like how to spread your money around, how to invest." And he's like, "I didn't even think about money. I'm 23 years old, man." And I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like you're not it's not just helping you grow as a football player, it's helping you grow as a person and how to be smart with your
Yeah.
money and things that you don't get taught probably. So for Bobby Wagner to start doing that and saying, hey, there's more to football, man. Be smart. And also he's his own agent. He knows how the money works too. So that was pretty cool to hear. And maybe I wish I would have maybe focused on that because that would have been a good story. How Bobby Wagner gives people books to read and how to, take care of your finances. So maybe for next season. But yeah, he was actually the team MVP that
Nice.
the players voted Bobby Wagner. So that was well deserved, and I can't compete against that, and I can't find another name that will be better. So Bobby Wagner was deserving the team MVP. I feel like.
All right, Gilbert. So, I mean, with all your good stories, is there anything you're working on, or are you just done? Is there any story outside of the McVay thing that you're working on? Anything you want to plug?
I think I'm just on my McVay watch. Like again, they unless my editors ask me, I'm not a big fan of looking back and examining what the hell happened. Like, who wants to read about the really bad 12 loss season? So, and a different year, I probably would have done that. But I'm more about looking ahead, and that's why I'm glad we're having this podcast here, House of Horns. Please subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your compas about it to subscribe. But I'm more waiting on McVay watch because once he decides, that's when you can really assess what's going to happen in the future, what's going to happen, or my focus starts becoming into the coaching hire search. I did it when the Chargers fired Anthony Lynn to Brandon Staley. That takes a whole month there. So I'm going to enjoy this time of uncertainty with Sean McVay. So he's going to go home and reflect. I'm going to go home and reflect and try to hire for a bit. But it's good to have this show here to get those thoughts out before we wait for Sean McVay to decide.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe, guys. Tell people we really appreciate it. I want to just say thank you to everybody for checking us out. It's been a good season, but we have more content coming. Let us know what you guys want to see on here, what you want to listen to, and we got you covered. Outside of that, Gilbert, you can close us out. And I know you got to go jump on and do another podcast. So we appreciate the time you give us.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to all the supporters and listeners and viewers of House of Horns. We fell short of the 500 subscriptions for the first season, but we got pretty close, and that makes me happy. Is like we're 460 something. So again, help us get to the 500 subscribers. And again, we don't know how many shows we're gonna do during the off season. We don't want to put a timetable or schedule on it. It could be once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Maybe we disappear for a month because we all deserve vacation, but let us know in the comments what you want to hear. But put it this way: whenever there's big news involving the Rams, we'll be on. We'll break it down. You can rely on us because we pride ourselves on giving you the latest information with the Rams. But it was a kind of a quiet period. We're gonna take advantage of it and enjoy it. But again, I like the momentum that we built here at House of Horns. Trying to build the subscribers. We won't be like completely dead. I'm sure Victor will make some cool TikToks or shorts for the YouTube channel, and we'll go that way. But again, thank you for all the support. And on that note, ya nos vamos, pues, vámonos.